On the day of my wedding to my fiancé, I caught him having an affair with my cousin in the back mountains. When the affair was exposed, he slapped my cousin across the face. She seduced me. I was drunk and mistook her for you. My father banished Su Qi from the estate. Framed by others, she was forced into prostitution. Later, my father helped him rise swiftly through the ranks. Having reached the pinnacle of power, his first act was to accuse my entire family of corruption and bribery, sentencing us all to execution. My tendons were severed, leaving me crippled and raped to death. He stepped on my broken legs, crushing me until I couldn't even cry. How does it feel? Being violated is unpleasant, isn't it? But Chi'er suffered 100 times worse than you. A month later, his younger half-brother Shen broke into the Chancellor's residence at night and hacked both him and Su Qi to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day the Empress Dowager asked me to choose a husband. Inger, who do you wish to choose? The Empress Dowager sat upon the main seat, looking down at me from above. My parents' deaths felt like yesterday, the agony of having my tendons severed still vivid. Yet, gazing at the familiar surroundings and my father seated nearby, it took me a long time to realize I had truly been reborn. Reborn at the moment when my father, having repeatedly distinguished himself in battle, faced the Emperor's reluctance to grant him titles or honors for fear of his growing power. The Empress had changed the plan to grant him a marquis title into bestowing a marriage upon me, allowing me to personally choose my husband. In my previous life, to weigh the pros and cons and help the imperial family completely lower their guard against my father, I complied with their wishes and chose the Empress's nephew, Shen Qingling. Yet, I never imagined it would lead to the execution of my entire family. This time, my fingers tightened slightly. With a thud, I knelt before the Empress and declared once more, in response to Her Majesty's question, I choose the illegitimate son of Minister Shen, Shen Yusi. The moment my words fell, a sudden silence descended. All eyes turned to me. Even Shen Qingling and Shen Yusi beside me paled. It must be noted that prior to this, Shen Yusi and I had scarcely crossed paths. Shen Yusi was merely the least favored illegitimate son of the Shen family. His mother was a lowly courtesan, unfit for respectable company. She had never even been formally taken as a concubine. Choosing him was not only a gross degradation of my own standing but also a direct affront to Shen Qingling and the Empress. It would turn my family into a grave threat to the entire imperial household. My father immediately retorted, "How dare you? A child's marriage is decided by their parents. How dare you speak such nonsense before the Empress?" Hearing his voice, my nose stung with emotion, yet I dared not look at him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Shen Yusi standing in the shadows, his dark eyes fixed on me with an intensity that felt like it could envelop me. That gaze seemed to wrap around me. Under his gaze, I bowed to the Empress. I have long cherished my affection for fourth young Master Shen. I implore your Majesty to grant me this wish. The Empress's face turned ashen, but with so many present, she could say little. She merely replied, "This matter need not be rushed. Inger, consider it carefully. It is not too late to decide after thorough reflection." As I exited the palace, before I could board the carriage, someone stopped me. It was Shen Yusi. Dressed in rich brocade robes, he was only 17 yet already possessed an extraordinary beauty. Tall and imposing, he strode toward me. I instinctively took half a step back. Shen Yusi pressed forward relentlessly, trapping me between his body and the wall. His phoenix-like eyes locked onto mine. "Miss Ning, do you understand the consequences of today's words for both of us? Do you realize that once word spreads, it will be too late to take it back?" His shadow fell over me, making me feel uneasy. Truthfully, in my previous life, I hadn't known him well or paid him much attention. I only knew that during a power struggle among noble families, he was killed by Shen Qingling. His body was discarded in a mass grave. I only learned of his existence again a month after my death, when he led his army to storm the Chancellor's residence, becoming the feared king of Qinghai. Carrying my memorial tablet, he hacked Shen Qingling and Su Qi to death with his sword. In our few encounters, I too was intimidated by his imposing presence and never spoke to him at length. His so-called influence stemmed largely from the fact that he walked not the righteous path, but instead became a courtier despised and hunted by all in the imperial court. His methods were ruthless and cruel, leaving no torture or harsh punishment untried. Despite being merely the son of a courtesan, he forcibly carved out a place for himself within the court. And my father, whose achievements overshadowed the sovereign, was bound to arouse suspicion. Moreover, he likely believed I was toying with him. After all, who would forsake the legitimate heir of the prestigious Shen family to marry the child of a courtesan? I recalled my past life, his bloodshot eyes as he stormed the chancellor's residence, plunging a blade into Shen Qingling's abdomen before pinning him to the wall. "How dare you kill her?" The agony in his eyes, even as a lingering ghost I could not escape, struck me with profound shock. I did not know why he held such deep affection for me, but it did not matter. I had plenty of time. I said, "I know. But so what?" He fixed me with a piercing stare. "Ning Luoying, Shen Yusi, am not someone you can toy with or discard at will. Think carefully." I replied, "Will you crush me completely?" His gaze grew darker than the night itself, and in the end, he remained silent. Emerging from the Empress's chambers, my father climbed into the carriage with a face dark as storm clouds. The moment we returned home, he ordered me to kneel in the ancestral hall, his fury boiling over. "You intend to marry such a man?" I had no idea what consequences marrying Shen Yusi would bring, nor did I have time to ponder it. I threw myself into his arms, clinging tightly. "Father, I missed you so much." Caught off guard by my embrace, my father paused slightly. "Do you realize the calamity you'll bring upon the Ning household by being with him? The imperial court already fears our family. If they mistake my loyalty for treachery, you'll be responsible for the destruction of the entire Ning clan." But in my previous life, the moment the crown prince ascended the throne, he allowed Shen Qingling to frame my father for embezzling state grain rations and accepting bribes while my father was fighting wars for him. Over 100 members of my family were beheaded and displayed publicly. I paused to consider, about to speak, when my father shot a glance toward the door. Slamming it shut, he was truly furious, demanding, "You truly wish to marry Shen Yusi?" Startled, I replied, "Yes." My father declared, "Then so be it. We shall choose Shen Yusi." They show me such distrust. I've faced death countless times, yet even my daughter's marriage is left to their whims. Using her lifelong happiness as leverage against me is utterly outrageous. I never imagined this was what had been gnawing at him all along. Startled, I asked, "You're not opposed?" My father snorted coldly. "Marrying Shen Qingling and being controlled by the Empress's family, is that really better than marrying Shen Yusi? Shen Yusi may be ruthless, but if he mistreats you, you can simply divorce him. But Shen Qingling? You can't just divorce her. Besides, I trust my daughter's judgment." Thus began the intense tug-of-war between father and daughter. My father roared, "Ning Luoying! Tomorrow, you will tell the Empress you regret your choice and demand Shen Qingling instead." He was stubborn, but I was more stubborn still. "If you force me to choose him, I'll smash my head against a wall and die." My father fell gravely ill over this. My choice of Shen Yusi naturally angered the Empress. Under the pretense of visiting my father, she came to persuade him. My father whimpered, "I failed to raise my daughter properly, breeding such a reckless creature. If she seeks death, I'll let her go. I'll pretend I never bore this daughter." Accompanying her was Shen Qingling. Seeing my father's wavering resolve, Shen Qingling quickly interjected, "General Ning, there's been a misunderstanding between me and Inger. That's why she chose my fourth brother in a fit of pique. Might I speak with her? I was my father's only daughter, and he cherished my mother above all else. I only told him Shen Qingling had a secret affair with my cousin yet sought to marry me. He nearly stabbed him on the spot. But he had to play the part convincingly, so he allowed her to see me." Shen Qingling looked much more haggard, pain lingering in her eyes. "Inger, did you choose Shen Yusi because Cheer deliberately provoked me? I've told you before, she's merely my cousin. You're the only one I love." Hearing this, I recalled something. In my past life, I had actually witnessed him holding Suchi in his arms at this very moment. But back then, he claimed Suchi's family had done him a favor. Her parents had died in battle, and he was merely showing pity, repaying her kindness. He only held her on the anniversary of her parents' death, offering comfort when she was overcome with grief. Then Suchi, as if suffering some terrible insult, snapped at me, "My cousin holds deep affection for Miss Ning. If you cannot tolerate my presence and wish to drive me away, just say so plainly." But to twist my cousin's intentions like this, shouldn't you apologize to him? It was as if any word from me would prove my narrow-mindedness. Brainwashed by the two of them, I ended up believing I was the jealous one and apologized to both. Now, looking at Shen Qingling, I smiled. What business is your relationship with her to me? Master Shen wouldn't think I'm infatuated with him, would he? Shen Qingling looked utterly incredulous, his eyes reddening. Then who do you love? That lowlife Shen Yusi? Her mother was nothing but a whore. My expression turned cold. Watch your words, young Master Shen. Regardless of what his mother did, he is the man I love. By slandering my fiancé like this, do you imply I am a whore too? That was not my intention. Whether you meant it or not matters not to me. Henceforth, young Master Shen, refrain from telling anyone I had an affair with you and ruining my reputation. With that, I turned away without another word. Shen Qingling's icy gaze followed my retreating figure. News of my choice of Shen Yusi spread like wildfire throughout the capital. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind. The palace waited for me to renounce my choice. My father fainted from anger multiple times. I began a hunger strike. My father issued a harsh ultimatum: if I didn't change my mind, he'd let me starve to death. He immediately ordered my personal maid to prepare my favorite pastries, saying with feigned concern, "You were crying so convincingly just now. It broke your father's heart." But as I ate the pastries, a memory struck me. At this time in my previous life, Shen Yusi had been framed, accused of colluding with others to betray the Shen household. It nearly cost him his life at his father's hands. The thought made me restless. I slipped out of the mansion in haste. Yet, I never expected that upon leaving, before I could find Shen Yusi, I stumbled upon Shen Qingling and Su Qi. Shen Qingling's expression was icy, while Su Qi tugged at his sleeve, pleading for something. The moment I saw them, memories of my past life flooded back. Scenes of Shen Qingling severing my tendons, forcing me to watch helplessly as my family fell victim to his blade. I turned to leave, but then Su Qi suddenly embraced Shen Qingling, who was about to walk away. "Cousin, don't abandon me. Rest assured, I will find a way to make Ning Luoying yours." My retreating steps halted abruptly as I turned to look at them. Shen Qingling also turned to face Su Qi. "What method do you have?" Su Qi lowered her voice. "On the day of the Empress's birthday." As soon as she finished, Shen Qingling's expression changed, and her eyes turned cold. Seeing his reaction, Su Qi exhaled in relief and asked, "Why do you think Ning Luoying suddenly chose Shen Yusi? Didn't she always admire you? Or did Shen Yusi pull some strings?" Shen Qingling declared, "I won't let him succeed. Tonight, I'll lure him out under Ning Luoying's name. Once my father catches him associating with the 8th Prince's men, he won't let him off lightly." I never imagined that everything Shen Yusi endured in his past life was because of me. Suddenly, I recalled that when Shen Yusi died, he had already fled. But that day, a fire broke out at the mansion where I was staying, and Shen Yusi suddenly turned back. I had assumed he'd forgotten something important at the Shen residence, never once considering it might involve me. But that day, I wasn't even in the mansion. I immediately turned and ran toward the Shen residence. Because of my mother's lowly status, Shen Yusi and his mother lived in the most humble quarters of the Shen mansion. Had he not been resourceful enough, he never would have climbed to his current position. When I arrived, I happened to see Shen Yusi emerging from the side courtyard of the Shen residence, just about to mount his carriage. He lifted his gaze and our eyes met. He paused slightly, seemingly surprised to find me there. The servant beside him also looked at me. "Aren't you?" "I'm not." My heart trembled. I truly didn't know why he valued me so highly. Others merely used me as a decoy, yet he was willing to risk his life for me. I asked, "Shen Yusi, what did Shen Qingling use to deceive you into coming to this rendezvous?" Shen Yusi's face was deathly pale, as if he were ill, yet his imposing presence remained undiminished as he strode toward me. He looked down at me from above. Instead of answering my question, he asked, "Did you come for me?" I replied, "You are my future husband. Of course I came for you. Or are you thinking of backing out?" Beneath his long lashes, his pupils were an almost intimidating black, as if they could pull me into their depths. He said, "Ning Luoying, if you only came to spite Shen Qingling, there was no need to go this far. Before he could finish, I stood on tiptoe, pulled him down, and pressed my lips to his. Shen Yucai's eyes darkened further. My nerves were stretched to the limit, and I was about to pull away. But he wrapped one arm around my waist and cupped the back of my head with his other hand, deepening the kiss. Our lips and teeth intertwined as he kissed me fiercely and dominantly, as if trying to embed me into his very being. My heart felt like it was about to stop, and breathing became difficult. Only when I was nearly gasping for air did he release me slightly. His eyes were clouded with something dark. Just as I was about to speak, I noticed something was wrong with him. He seemed to be enduring intense pain. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," he replied. But his attendant interjected, "Because fourth young master wants to be with you." Old Master Shen blamed him for meddling. He made him kneel in the ancestral hall and nearly beat him to death. Only then did I notice the blood seeping through his back. Shen Yucai called out to the attendant, "Xiao Lu." Xiao Lu's eyes were red as he said, "Miss Ning, Shen Qingling said you only chose our young master despite him and Miss Su. That you and he were already deeply in love." I asked Xiao Lu, "What did he use to get your master to come?" Xiao Lu replied, "The maid by your side came over and said you were in danger." So, the maid by my side had also been bribed by him. I stared at Shen Yucai. "And because of this, you agreed to meet him?" Shen Yucai pressed his lips together. After a long moment, he said, "I couldn't afford to gamble." My eyes suddenly stung. I have no connection to Shen Qingling. But Shen Yucai, the Ning and Shen families are sworn enemies. The Ning family will never be loyal to the crown prince. You must think this through. Shen Yucai smiled faintly. What I seek is but one person. After returning, I had someone send Shen Yucai some premium medicinal ointment. This lifetime, I would never let him crawl back from the dead again. With this resolve, I wanted my father to heed my counsel henceforth. Over the next few days, I kept having prophetic dreams. Drawing on memories from my past life, I accurately predicted several court upheavals. Each time, my predictions proved remarkably accurate. My father began to take notice. A few days later, the Empress's birthday arrived, and the Ning family naturally attended. The Empress affectionately held my hand, constantly creating opportunities for me and Shen Qingling to be alone. Yet I acted as if I didn't understand. Later that evening, after the banquet ended, I immediately slipped away to a corner. A maid approached discreetly, offering me food. "Miss, you haven't eaten much tonight. You must be hungry. I brought you some food." I looked at her and let out a cold laugh. I never imagined this maid, once bullied, whom I had pitied and rescued, would betray me in return. I commanded, "Tie her up." She instantly realized her betrayal had been exposed. Her eyes filled with terror as her knees buckled, forcing her to her knees. "Miss, spare my life." Of course, I paid her no mind. There was no way I could keep her alive. I ordered someone to handle her. Soon after, I slipped out of the courtyard and made my way to a secluded side room. The night was deep. From afar, I saw two figures entwined. I knew someone must have reported this to the Empress. She would use the excuse of assassins here to bring my father and the Emperor over. Sure enough, moments later, they arrived. The Empress ordered her men to push open the door. The instant the door swung open, the Empress was about to speak when her face abruptly paled. Upon seeing the scene inside, the Emperor too was overcome with fury. "Outrageous. At the Empress's birthday banquet, you dare behave so licentiously, committing such scandalous acts." At that very moment, in a rarely visited side chamber of the palace, Shen Qingling and Su Qi lay entwined, their clothes entirely discarded. My father, witnessing the scene, recalled the words I had once spoken to him, his rage boiling over. "Shen Qingling, I poured my heart into arranging your marriage to Inger. How dare you betray her with another woman? What do you take her for?" Shen Qingling, heavily intoxicated, had intended to claim I had summoned him. But upon realizing the figure beneath him was not me, but Su Qi, his face drained of color. Yet his reaction was swift, mirroring his past life. A sharp slap landed on Su Qi's cheek. "You wretch. Because of the kindness your family once showed my household, I kept you by my side as a maid. I never imagined you would be so audacious as to poison me." After speaking, he hurriedly dressed and crawled before the emperor, the empress, and my father, declaring, "It was Su Qi who drugged me, causing my loss of reason. I implore your majesty and the empress to investigate this matter thoroughly." But Su Qi caught sight of me standing behind them. Instantly realizing I had secretly returned the poison she'd given me, she pointed at me. It was her. She plotted to frame me. My father's rage boiled over. "How dare you conspire together and then try to frame my daughter? This is outrageous." The empress was furious. Originally, they'd planned to force me into a relationship with Shen Qingling. To prevent the scandal from spreading, she had no choice but to marry him. Yet this unexpected turn of events. The emperor and empress naturally knew Shen Qingling and Su Qi's affairs were inextricably linked to me. But what could they do? They could only swallow their anger. She could only shift all blame onto Su Qi, ordering her dragged out and beaten to death with sticks. The empress naturally abandoned any mention of my marriage to Shen Qingling. Su Qi glared at me with hatred. "Ning Luoying, it was you. You framed me. Even as a ghost, I won't let you off." But how could I let her die so easily? I bribed the executioner to save Su Qi when she was barely clinging to life. In my past life, my father had her expelled from the estate but didn't seek her complete destruction. Remembering her kindness to Shen Qingling, he found her a place to go. But she refused to accept her fate. She bribed others to plot against me. Instead, she was framed and forced into prostitution. She blamed every misfortune on me, hating me to her core. Now, I've slashed her face and sent her to the military camp to serve as a camp prostitute. Su Qi glared at me with hatred. "I will never forgive you." Recalling her and Shen Qingling's past betrayals toward me, I slapped her across the face. "You'll have to wait until you survive to make that threat." Meanwhile, Shen Yusi sent envoys to propose marriage to the Ning family. Given the Ning household status, even though Shen Yusi was a concubine's son, the Shen family dared not be disrespectful. Shen Yusi presented nearly all his possessions. Even my father was astonished by the offerings. Who would have thought he'd be so willing to splurge? Not just anyone could produce such things. He added with a touch of resentment, "Being a courtier really has its perks, you get whatever you want." Meanwhile, the imperial court was shrouded in gloom. Before my marriage to Shen Yucai, I ordered Su Qi's release. After leaving the military camp, she went straight to Shen Qingling. That very day, Shen Qingling invited me over. When I arrived, Su Qi was clinging to him. "Cousin, I beg you. I can't take this anymore. Please save me. Ning Luoying won't let me go." In my past life, Shen Qingling's affection for her stemmed solely from the fact that I was already with him. But now, in his eyes, it was because I had caught them in their affair that I chose Shen Yucai instead. He became the laughingstock of the entire capital, with everyone saying I'd rather die than marry him. His affection for Su Qi instantly turned to hatred. He shoved her away. "Get out. If it weren't for you, I would have been with Inger long ago." Su Qi could scarcely believe it. She bit her lip hard, tears welling in her eyes. "Cousin, didn't you say you'd love me forever in this lifetime?" Shen Qingling, pent up with frustration for days, had nowhere to vent her rage. She lashed out, slapping Su Qi across the face. "You worthless woman. If not for you that day, how could I have ended up like this?" After speaking, he feared even the slightest association with her. He ordered men to throw her out onto the street. No matter how she struggled and cried for help, Shen Qingling remained unmoved. Su Qi's face was already slashed by me. She'd worn a veil the whole time she came over, but by the time she was dumped on the street, the veil had fallen off. People around her stared. Such a disgusting thing, daring to show up on the street. "You scared the hell out of me, you know." A child threw stones at her. "Ugly freak, get lost." Then a group of children surrounded her. "Ugly freak. Ugly freak." Su Qi covered her face and ran toward a river. The moment she saw her reflection, she went mad, screaming, "I'm not her. That's not me. I'm not a freak. That can't be me." Seeing this, Shen Qingling felt no sympathy left. The moment he saw me, he rushed over, urgently saying, "Luoying, Su Qi and I truly have no connection. That day, she drugged me to seduce me. I genuinely love you. If you marry me, I swear I'll never take a concubine for the rest of my life. I yawned. Are you done? Seeing my indifference, Shen Qingling began to threaten. Ning Luoying, have you considered the consequences of choosing Shen Yusi? The imperial court fears the Ning family monopolizing power. If you marry me, you'll be aligned with the empress and the crown prince. But if you marry Shen Yusi, do you think the empress will tolerate your Ning family? Or that the crown prince, once he ascends the throne, will tolerate your Ning family? I looked at him, pondered for a long moment, then nodded. You have a point. Shen Qingling thought he'd swayed me inside in relief. Let's go see His Majesty now and ask him to grant us this marriage. What do you say? I chuckled softly. Young Master Shen, no need to rush. I do wish to marry you, but alas, I'm a bit of a Lucist. You're far too ugly, filthy and repulsive. Talking to you makes me want to vomit. In that case, marrying Shen Yusi is clearly better. At least he's pleasing to the eye. Shen Qingling recognized I was toying with him, his face contorting with fury. Ning Luoying. But I'd already spotted my rendezvous nearby and dashed toward them. Yusi. Shen Yusi sat in his carriage, the curtain half drawn as he watched Shen Qingling. His aura was icy cold. When he turned to look at me, his lashes lowered as he asked, "Did you arrange this?" I shook my head. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he said nothing. Only his fists clenched tightly at his sides. Yet the possessive glint in his eyes as he watched me sent a shiver down my spine. Strangely, it was laced with an inexplicable restraint. As if he wanted to claim me entirely, yet feared frightening me. Or perhaps, feared that my affection for him was nothing more than a jest. A stinging sensation rose in my nose. I said, Shen Yusi, I am already yours. If you dislike my association with him, just say so. Shen Yusi lifted his long lashes, his deep eyes fixed on me. Is that really okay? Inger, I'm merely the son of a courtesan, with a tarnished reputation. Following me will only thrust your Ning family into the eye of the storm. I understood instantly. Shen Yusi had grown up in such a household, coldly treated by the Shen family since childhood, never truly loved. Even when I proposed marriage to him, his father beat him nearly to death. No matter how outstanding or brilliant he was, he still carried deep insecurities, weighed down by his reputation. Even after our engagement, it felt unreal to him, like a mirage. No matter how overwhelming his affection, it would forever remain restrained. I nodded. If you don't possess me, I'd start doubting whether you even like me. Before I could finish, he leaned in to kiss me. His lips and tongue invaded my mouth, his long, powerful arms clasping me tightly. As if refuting my claim that he didn't like me. Thinking of Shen Qingling present, I felt awkward and tried to push him away. He held me tighter, leaving me no chance to resist. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Shen Qingling watching us with a twisted expression. Her face contorted with fury before she stormed off in anger. I simply closed my eyes. After the kiss ended, Shen Yucai's long, strong fingers brushed my soft lips. You belong to me alone. I truly dislike you getting close to him, Inger. I have little to offer you now, but I swear, this lifetime, no matter the circumstances, I will always place you above anyone and anything. In that moment, I suddenly recalled another youth who once held me. He was so terrified he trembled almost uncontrollably. Ning Luoying, don't die. As long as you're safe, this lifetime, whatever you desire, I'll find it for you. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was still very young, brought into the palace by my father. Since he had important matters to discuss with the emperor, he left me in the care of an old eunuch. I teased him about his age and ran especially fast. He chased after me, calling me old lady over and over. Then, near the academy, I encountered a solitary youth. That youth was studying at the academy alongside other aristocratic sons. Due to his background, he was always among the few who were shunned. I found him strikingly handsome and couldn't help stealing glances at him, though he remained utterly cold toward me. Suddenly, I saw several noble youths violently push him into the lake. I shouted for someone to rescue him. But with the crown prince among them, no one dared intervene. In the end, I pulled him out myself, only to be entangled by something and nearly drowned. The others were terrified and fled immediately, not daring to stay. When the old eunuch arrived, his legs buckled, and he nearly knelt in fright. I then developed a high fever and later remembered little of the incident. When I awoke from a nightmare, drenched in sweat, I rushed to find my father to ask him about those events. Father recalled it vaguely. There was such an incident, I suppose. But at the time, I thought he was the one who saved you. I even had him rewarded. Hearing this, I froze in shock. So it was just this minor incident, yet he remembered it for all these years. Even after my death, he could abandon the power he traded his life for, all to avenge me. On the day of my grand wedding to Shen, he honored me with the highest ceremony, an 8-man palanquin to carry me to his home. Shen status suddenly surpassed even Shen Qingling's. Naturally, Shen Qingling refused to let it rest. He had someone drug Shen Yucai and sent a maid to seduce him. His aim was to force me to break off the engagement on the spot. Unfortunately for him, Shen Yucai was always cautious. Though he drank the wine, he pulled me into the red canopy bed. He lowered his gaze upon me. His eyes swirled like whirlpools. Inger, help me. I'm in agony. That night nearly cost me my life. I glared at him coldly, yet my resolve faltered, my eyes reddened. Shen Yucai, you're usually so cautious. Did you truly not suspect the wine was laced? His lashes fluttered. I didn't notice at the time. I tried to rise but collapsed onto the bed. He lifted me up with one hand, his gaze falling on the bloodstains on the bedding. His ears flushed, yet his eyes remained as dark as ink. My ears burned. I covered his eyes. Don't look! He picked me up and carried me to bathe. Midway, he couldn't resist, pressing me against the tub. Grasping my slender wrist, he leaned in to kiss me again. In the tub, our dark hair tangled together as my fingers clung tightly to his back. My marriage to Shen Yucai unsettled both the crown prince and the empress. In my past life, my father served the emperor with unwavering loyalty. On the day the emperor died, a palace coup erupted. He entrusted the crown prince to my father. My father risked his life for the crown prince, yet met such a tragic end. This time around, I had my father directly serve as advisor to the 8th prince. If I recall correctly, in my past life, the 8th prince was framed and forced to his death by the crown prince for protecting the city's people. Shen Yucai, after being framed by the Shen family, had no choice but to follow the 8th prince. Yet in the end, he was willing to risk his life for the 8th prince. My father had initially been conflicted, but because the empress never truly addressed the Shen Qingling incident, and after hearing from my maid that the empress had tacitly approved it, my father was so enraged he nearly spat blood. That night, I feigned waking in the dead of night, then knocked on my parents' door and said to him, "Father, Mother, I had a dream." I dreamt the crown prince ascended the throne, but he believed Shen Qingling's slanderous words and had my entire family executed. My father's face paled. Having witnessed my previous dreams' accuracy, he now believed them without question. At my words, he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. How dare they! My Ning family has served the empire with loyalty and valor for generations, and this is how they repay us. Within days, memorials accusing the crown prince of misconduct reached the emperor's desk. The emperor was, of course, furious. I knew my moment had come. For once the impeachment storm passed, the crown prince would accompany the emperor on the hunting expedition beyond the frontier, and then strike at the 4th prince, whom he had always feared. That very night, I sought out the 8th prince. When I found him, he was at a brothel. I knew full well his visit was far from mere pleasure-seeking. I looked at him and said, "8th prince, might we speak?" When I explained my purpose, his eyes narrowed. He replied, "Miss Ning, do you realize what you're saying? Such treasonous words, if Father Emperor learns of them, it would mean the execution of our entire family." I whispered a few words into his ear. I said, "Consider this a meeting gift." The 8th prince's expression changed. On the day His Majesty went hunting beyond the frontier, the crown prince indeed ordered the framing of the 4th prince. My father and I lured the emperor there, and he heard it with his own ears. Enraged, the emperor struck the crown prince across the face. "You wretched creature." Terrified, the crown prince fell to his knees with a thud. "Father, your son has erred. I beg for your mercy." The The crown prince had already faced accusations, and now, before all the court officials, he was heard plotting against his own brother. Consumed by rage, the emperor returned to the palace and ordered the crown prince's succession stripped. The empress, naturally, refused to accept this and rushed to confront the emperor. "Your Majesty, the crown prince was merely momentarily bewitched and incited by others. I beg you to reconsider." The emperor, however, turned his anger upon her. "His current state is entirely due to your indulgence as empress. If you persist in this, even your position as empress may not be secure." The empress collapsed to the ground. That night, when I met with the 8th prince, his gaze was dark and intense as he looked at me. I asked, "Is this gift to your satisfaction, 8th prince?" Knowing his cautious nature and distrust of others, he inquired, "What conditions does the Ning family seek in aiding me?" I smiled and replied, "The Ning family asks for nothing in return. We only hope that once you ascend the throne, you will remain true to your heart and govern your subjects with genuine care." After a pause, I added, "And also, place Shen Qingling in my hands for punishment." On the day the emperor passed away without designating an heir, the 8th prince, who had been plotting for years, with my father commanding the military forces, leading 100,000 troops, we waited outside the city gates. He overruled all objections and placed the 8th prince upon that throne. No one dared utter a word of dissent. Of the Shen family, only Shen Yucai, now the 8th prince's confidant, remained free. The rest were branded as traitors and rebels, thrown into prison. I demanded Shen Qingling from the 8th prince. Shen Qingling, frustrated and unfulfilled these past years, had long lost his former charm. Seeing me approach, he crawled toward me. "Inger, save me. You love me. You can't bear to see me suffer like this, can you?" I smiled. "Love him? I only wish to make him wish he were dead." I ordered his Achilles tendon severed. This time, I made him watch his family die horribly before his eyes. Then, stepping on his broken leg, I let him scream once before commanding my men to peel off one of his fingernails. The pain was excruciating, soaking him in sweat. After that, I locked him and Su Qi together, giving each a small knife. A stab wouldn't kill, enough to scrape away a layer of flesh. They were so devoted in their past life, I naturally wanted to grant them their wish. I declared, "Only one of you may live." But in this life, they both lunged for the knife almost simultaneously. Each sought only to destroy the other. Su Qi was a woman, and Shen Qingling had severed tendons, both had their weaknesses. In the struggle, Su Qi seized the blade. Knowing it couldn't kill, she slashed viciously across Shen Qingling's face. Shen Qingling screamed in agony. Like a madwoman, she lunged at Su Qi. I ordered my men not to let either die too easily, then turned and left. Even from a great distance, their agonized cries echoed. Only when someone informed me that both were near death, even Hua Tuo himself couldn't save them, did I return. I brought men to take a look. One glance was enough to make me feel sick. Somehow, Su Qi had severed Shen Qingling's tendons too, then carved chunks of flesh from his body. Now, he clung to life by a thread. Shen Qingling mouthed to me, "Why are you doing this to me?" I chuckled and said, "How does it feel? Not so pleasant, is it?" Su Qi knelt on the ground, crawling toward me. "Let me go. I beg you, let me go." But soon, she was kicked away by someone. The next instant, a pair of cool hands covered my eyes. Behind me pressed a warm chest. Mixed with the scent of ink, I knew it was Shen Yucai. I had long told Shen Yucai about my past life's ordeal. He naturally understood why I hated those two so intensely. He covered my eyes and said, "Don't look. It's filthy. Rest assured, I'll make them wish they were dead." Then he carried me out, placed me in the carriage, and stroked my belly, saying, "Take care of the baby." I snorted coldly, "So you only care about the child in my womb?" Shen Yucai looked at me with a heavy gaze. Then he suddenly pulled me tightly into his embrace. The more restrained his affection, the more overwhelming it became. "Inger, this child is our flesh and blood. From this day forward, you will never leave me." I clung to him tightly in return. Silly. I couldn't understand why he still felt so insecure, even after we were married. I said, "Shen Yucai, you have no idea how much I love you. Shen Yucai tightened his embrace around me. He asked, "But do you know how much I love you?" I smiled softly, burying my face against his chest. "We have a lifetime to discover that, don't we?" A gentle breeze swept by as I heard Shen Yucai murmur, low and restrained, "Mm." It wasn't until much, much later that I finally understood. His constant insecurities weren't born from ignorance of how deeply I loved him in this lifetime. He simply wanted me to love him a little more, just a little bit more. Even though I knew this, I still couldn't help but ache for him. After all, this was the boy who would give his life for me. The end.